Good morning. Today is Wednesday, November 20th. Thank you for tuning in to Buncombe County's community briefing. I am Cassie Day, Buncombe County Communications Manager. Today, we're joined by Debra Campbell, Asheville City Manager, Nate Pennington, Director of the county's Planning and Development Department, and Derek Wainscott, the Stormwater Division Manager for the City of Asheville. But first, we'll have a report from Avril Pender, County Manager.
Good morning. Last night, the Board of County Commissioners met and approved Helene-related items that aim to help with recovery. You may be aware that was the last meeting for Chairman Brownie Newman and Commissioner Jasmine Beach Ferrara. Not just during this disaster, we want to thank them for their leadership, but not just during this disaster, but for the years they have served Buncombe County. Here are three important approvals that they made last night. The County Commissioners approved a contract with Grace Covenant as an administrator of the county's rental assistance program. Both Grace Covenant and Buncombe County Economic Services will administer $1.5 million in Helene relief, including rental assistance. Mountain BizWorks will be the administrator of the Small Business Relief Fund. Following a public hearing, Commissioners approved an amendment to the Buncombe County Code of Ordinances to create standards that allow emergency housing within Buncombe County in response to Tropical Storm Helene. This short-term temporary housing can help meet the needs of people experiencing a housing impact after a declared federal, state, or local disaster. The county has entered in an interlocal agreement with the City of Asheville and the Town of Black Mountain, where the county would manage the intake process for the private property debris removal through our disaster recovery consultants, Tetra Tech. This week, Tetra Tech started implementing a private property debris removal intake process. Here are some details on the intake process. The online application option for private property debris removal is live. We will add the link in the chat, or you can also scan the QR code on this screen. You can also call the One Buncombe call center with questions about debris. The number is 828-250-6100. Again, that is 828-250-6100. Intake centers are open now at the Asheville Mall, the same location as the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center. That's open daily from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. These times will adjust as the FEMA DRC hours adjust. The following locations are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Barnersville Fire Department, Station 15, Swannanoa Fire Department, Fairview Library. As of this morning, over 200,000 cubic yards of debris have been collected in the public right-of-ways in Buncombe County. Currently, there are 45 trucks running in Buncombe County, removing debris from all zones in the county. Now, FEMA update. For those who have not yet filled out their FEMA assistance application, we encourage you to do so at disasterassistance.gov or by calling 800-621-3362. Important updates for the FEMA Disaster Recovery Center at the Asheville Mall. Starting on Monday, November 25th, the center at the Asheville Mall will be open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays. The center will now close on Sundays, and it will also be closed from November 28th to December 1st for the Thanksgiving weekend. The DRC will reopen on Monday, December 2nd. This week, the center is open regular hours, so you can go by between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. If you go to the Asheville Mall before doors open at 11 a.m., please use the Barnes & Noble entrance. This new schedule applies to all DRCs in the state. So if you're out of town visiting a DRC, this is their new schedule as well. To find a DRC location near you, go to fema.gov/DRC, or you can text DRC and a zip code to 43362. An update on Code Purple. With the upcoming colder weather this week, a Code Purple will start tomorrow. Code Purple is a coordinated effort between Asheville and Buncombe County shelters and other organizations to provide emergency overflow shelter to people experiencing homelessness. This means shelter will provide more beds with fewer requirements to access. These shelters are accessible via public transit and includes a BCCM at 20th Street, open for single men, and an ABCCM at 30 Olin Haven Way for women and children. Intake for both locations starts at 4 p.m. during Code Purple days. Tomorrow, Lacey Hoyle, Homelessness Program Manager with Buncombe County, and Emily Ball, Homeless Strategy Division Manager with the City of Asheville, will be here to talk more about Code Purple and sheltering efforts during cold weather. An update on hazard mitigation. Buncombe County residents can receive funding to make their homes more resilient through home projects that reduce the long-term risk and impacts of natural hazards such as floods, wildfires, and storms. Through the program, there are 3 home or projects including elevation, home mitigation, reconstruction, and acquisition. Aspects of this project includes raising the elevation of the home, foundation and new construction, and or acquisition of the property. In all 3 of these programs, there's no cost to the homeowner. To date, we've had 582 applications submitted so far. Applications are open and can be submitted online. To apply online, complete the 5-minute grant information request. The link will be in the chat, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone. Online applications will be open for a year. Our Wasteboro schedule for the week. Through Friday, Wasteboro will operate normal routes for household trash and recycling in accessible locations. Wasteboro will also be located at the following locations for residents that they are not able to access. From 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., household bag trash only. On Wednesday, today, you can go to Hearts with Hands, 850 Warren Wilson Road. Tomorrow, Thursday, Ingalls Fairview at 225 Charlotte Highway. And on Friday, North Buncombe Pool at 734 Clark's Chapel Road in Weaverville. A reminder from the Asheville Buncombe Rebuilding Together Grant Fund. That fund is now open and it's eligible for for-profit businesses in Buncombe County and the City of Asheville. You're eligible to receive grants of up to $25,000 to support recovery expenses not covered by insurance or other funding sources. Applications are open through November 27th and can be found at mountainbizworks.org/abgrants. Applications are also available in Spanish. Our distribution sites and community care stations. Even with the city's welcome news that the boil water advisory is lifted, water distribution operations, laundry, and showers will continue to be available at the community care stations. We are working to coordinate these resources for our community based on need, and we'll be sure to communicate about any changes to the sites. Our community care stations are open daily from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. An update from Buncombe County Parks and Rec. We are excited to announce that the main part of Lake Julian, located at 406 Overlook Extension, will be open to the public on Monday, December 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. The marina and Diff Golf Course remain closed due to debris and unsafe trees. The lake will be open to kayaks, paddle boats, canoes, and paddle boards, but the boat ramp is not accessible at this time. And we would like to officially announce that the Festival of Lights will be open to Lake Julian from December 6th to December 23rd, every evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. for cars, vans, and buses. We look forward to seeing you there. Thanks to Parks and Recreation staff, our safety officer, and the debris removal consultants, and contractors for creating this opportunity for our community to come together for this flagship event. And now we'll turn it over to Asheville City Manager, Debra Campbell.
Good morning, and thank you, Avril. As was stated, my name is Debra Campbell, and I serve as the city manager, City of Asheville. As usual, I want to start by thanking everyone in the community for your continued support and your ongoing efforts to contribute to our community's recovery from Tropical Storm Helene. We are on day 56 of our emergency response and recovery efforts. As I mentioned in previous briefings, city staff is now organized around an operational framework to respond to the short, medium, and long-term recovery needs of our community in the following 7 focus areas: housing, storm debris, economic recovery, water recovery, yay, infrastructure, arts and cultural resources, and functional support, which includes cost recovery, community capacity building, administrative support, data, and communication. Yesterday, we provided an update to council on progress being made on housing and economic recovery efforts. The conversation was so robust that we didn't get to present information on the other areas. For more detailed information about that meeting, please go to the city's website at asheville.nc.gov. And also to view the presentation, you can access it from that website or to our YouTube channel to view the actual meeting. Please join us for more information about focus area progress at the next City Council briefing on December the 5th. As with yesterday's City Council briefing, you can follow along on the city's YouTube channel. I will, as usual, briefly update you on our water distribution and mill sites, progress on storm debris removal, and share some additional information about some upcoming holiday celebrations. And since we have lifted the boil water alert, we will not provide a water restoration update, but we do have staff here to respond to questions if there are any. Also this morning, we will have a brief update on the results of our substantial storm damage inventory and assessment process. So I'll start the update today with water and mill distribution sites and information in the city of Asheville. As of this morning, our sites have distributed more than 3.6 million bottles and 1 liter cartons of drinking water, 22,289 gallon jugs of potable water, 256,314 gallons of non-potable water, 224,371 meals ready to eat, and 2,671 blankets for warmth. We are maintaining distribution sites from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Pack Square Park, 70 Court Plaza, Stallings Bowling Alley, 1477 Patton Avenue, Linwood Crump Shallow Community Center, 121 Shallow Road. And again, the Shallow location has bottled and cartons of water and MREs, but no bulk water. Additionally, community care stations within the city of Asheville are co-located with distribution sites at 980 Brevard Road in the At Home Store parking lot, 85 Tunnel Road in the Innsbrook Mall parking lot. The operating hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Both locations have ADA accessible showers and restrooms, and also televisions have been installed for entertainment. Our contractors have collected 93,986.2 cubic yards of storm debris. This is equal to about 4.5 football fields stacked 10 feet tall with debris. Today, the contractor will have 31 trucks running in Asheville. The zones will be as follows. 1, in Zone 1, West Asheville, 1 in Zone 2, West Asheville, north of Haywood Road, 7 in Zone 3, which is downtown, 9 in Zones 4 and 5, which is north and northeast Asheville, 5 in Zone 6, which is East Asheville, and 8 in Zone 7 and 8, which is southeast and south Asheville. Also today, contractors will begin collecting appliances and white goods. White goods include refrigerators, ranges, water heaters, freezers, unit air conditioners, washing machines, dishwashers, clothes dryers, and other similar domestic and commercial large appliances. Work is still focused on public right-of-way cleanup, and we continue to encourage all we talked about at our last briefing. It's Holiday Jamboree presented by Bojangles, produced by Asheville Downtown Association in partnership with the city of Asheville. It will be held in Pack Square Park from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. and include free photos with Santa, arts and crafts with parks and recreation staff, holiday market filled with local vendors who you can support, by buying gifts for your have shown incredible dedication to the community. Please come out to celebrate and support our creative community and small businesses and restaurants in downtown as we prepare to celebrate the holiday season and our city's unity and resilience. Additionally, on November 23rd, the Burton Street Community Center will hold a Friendsgiving potluck from Day series begins on December 4th with a candy cane flashlight hunt and continues through the month with cookie contests, seasonal games, festive meals, holiday camps, calls from Santa, roller skating at Harris Cherokee Center, Asheville, and more for all ages throughout the city. More information is available at asheville.nc.gov/parks. And in closing, and as usual, I'd like to extend my continued thanks to the mayor and city council, all of our dedicated collaboration and partnerships will be a critical part of our recovery strategy, and we will build back better. I will now turn it over to our Stormwater Division Manager, Derek Wainscott, to provide an update on our storm damage assessment.
Thank you, Debra. My name is Derek Wainscott, the city's Stormwater Division Manager. The damage assessment update is as follows. The city of Asheville staff from multiple divisions and departments began substantial damage assessments on November 1st. And I'm happy to report that the residential and non-residential substantial damage assessments have been completed for the structures in the floodplain. The assessments followed FEMA's guidelines. We completed about 1,000 assessments, of which 543 were non-residential. City staff will be using FEMA software to calculate the estimated cost of damage for individual structures within the floodplain. Our next steps include complete the estimated cost of substantial damage, Once the cost estimation is complete, city staff will notify owners of the results. For residential and non-residential structures that incurred 50% or more cost damage compared to the adjusted tax value of the building, owners will need to work with development services to bring the structures into compliance. Owners will have the opportunity to review the assessment results with staff and, if necessary, appeal them. Information on the appeals process will be provided with the results. More information regarding substantial storm damage assessments and the appeals process will be posted to the city's website soon. I would like to thank the many departments who assisted in completing the substantial damage assessments. It was a nice collaborative effort for the city of Asheville. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have Nate Pennington, Buncombe County's Planning Director.
Good morning, everyone. As Cassie mentioned, I'm Nathan Pennington, Planning Director for Buncombe County. Within the Planning Department, one of the key functions is floodplain management. I'm going to just go over some really high-level brief overview of floodplain management and give us some updates in terms of where the county is in their damage assessments at this point. First up on the screen, Planning Department is open, has been open. We're located at 46 Valley Street. It's important for anyone that has questions about development of their property, who's received flood damages, anything related to the land use or further use of your property, please come see us. We are available via phone. You may walk into the lobby. We're open 8 to 5. We've set up a flood portal, Helene flood permits at buncombecounty.org. Those are for flood specific questions. We also have the planning info at buncombecounty.org, handling all other inquiries. On the next slide here, just to enlighten everyone, the National Flood Insurance Program, which we've been a member of since 1980, the county provides flood plain management services to some of the other municipalities, including Woodfin and Weaverville. Asheville is their own separate entity and does their own separate permitting. We are fortunate in North Carolina to be a MAP partner with the state, working with FEMA, which means that the state does our flood maps for us. The flood maps are based on what's called a flood insurance study. And on the screen before you, there's some colors I'd like to point out. The most at-risk area is what's called the floodway. This is in the purple here. The river course, the water, the channel always flows within the floodway, but the floodway extends far beyond the channel sometimes. What you see before you is a section of Swannanoa. You can see the incredible width of that floodway. These are areas that almost always flood during a rain or storm event. They're high velocity and they are very perilous. The blue area, for those that are familiar with the 100-year or fringe, this is floodplain as well. Development is allowed in this area, but standards must be met. I'm going to go over those in just a second. One thing about the 100-year that's a little confusing to folks is it doesn't happen just once every 100 years. It's a 1% annual chance. We are seeing these 1% chances increase in frequency. Finally, on this graphic, you'll see a light green area. This is the 500-year. This is a 0.2% annual chance. What we saw during this event was floodwaters so far exceeded the 500-year, it's very likely we experienced a 1,000-year event, which is not even mapped. There's some modeling associated with the 1,000-year, but the maps that we have are current, they stay current, and we probably will not receive a new set of maps for about 3 to 4 years. On the next slide, I'd like to point out a couple of different graphics. First of all, anytime you conduct work in the floodplain or the special flood hazard area, and that's inclusive of the floodway and the 100-year, Permits are required. And that's why it's important for everyone to come see us in planning, because no two properties are created equally. No two flood events are created equally. And every property in the county is unique. I like to say that no two lots in the county are created equally. On this graphic before you, you'll see two homes. The homes are relatively the same, but they're built very differently. On the left, the structure is what's called pre-firm, pre-flood insurance rate maps. So we have a number of homes that were built without any standards before we joined the flood program. These are most at risk. They're not built in a way to do well after a flood event. They have no way to self-mitigate themselves. They have no way to balance out the incredible pressures that come with a flood event. These structures may be built back, but we're going to go into a threshold here in just a second that I'll explain. The one on the right is built to today's standards. The indication there of BFE stands for base flood elevation. This is the bare minimum that a structure must be built to in the flood insurance program. Many communities have what's called a higher standard called a freeboard. Our freeboard, this is the elevation on top of a base flood elevation, is 2 feet. That means you have to build 2 feet above this base flood elevation. The property on the right, the home, the structure, it has flood openings that allow the equalization of pressure during a flood event. Now we're going to talk about damages. Substantial damage is where you look at a property, and if it's not built to today's standards, so the one that says before, you look at the damages associated with it, and they may not exceed the improvements or the repairs. They may not exceed 50% of the market value. This is part of the assessment process that we are in right now that Asheville just described. They had just completed. Commercial and residential structures are treated differently. Commercial has the ability to do some things that you can't do in a residential structure. We'll talk about those in a second. On the next slide, this is just so everyone can kind of see the extensive nature of the damages that occurred. We overlaid the floodplain on here so you could just see the extent of how far flood damages were received outside of the mapped floodplains. This area in particular, Swannanoa, it's inclusive of both residential structures and commercial structures. After the flood event, inspectors fanned out all across the county, all across 667 square miles of the county, and did our initial assessments. They used colored placards using green, yellow, and red. Red being the structures that were most damaged, whether it be structural, flooding as far up as 5, 6, even to the ceiling and above some structures. We are in a process now of where we are engaging with the county's contractor, Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech is going and working with our staff, our 4 floodplain managers in the planning department, and they are truthing out the data, refining the data, and making sure that we picked up all the structures that are located in the special flood hazard area that were potentially substantially damaged. This is critical to maintain our membership in the National Flood Insurance Program. A quick note on flood insurance. Should I get flood insurance? If you are near a water course, if you're near a babbling brook, yes. As we saw in this event, these innocent streams can become your worst nightmare. Obviously, if you're in a special flood hazard area, you should get flood insurance. Even if you're outside a MAP flood insurance, special flood hazard area, you should get flood insurance. The reason being is in areas like Swannanoa that have significant impervious area, roads, bridges, and developed areas, all of these further compound the issue of flooding, especially when it comes to bridges that are lower, not built to today's standards. The velocity of waters that come through these areas create massive debris dams and create a phenomenon called backwater. Backwater fans out and creates massive pools of flooding, as we saw in Swannanoa and other areas across the county. There's an added benefit to flood insurance. It comes with what's called increased cost of compliance. This allows you to do things like, for instance, in a flood policy, they allow $30,000, which allows you to further mitigate your structure, whether that be elevating, whether that be installing flood vents. There is added benefit to flood insurance. The other beauty of flood insurance is you can call your flood insurance company directly, file a claim. It covers contents as well as the structure itself. When in doubt about flood insurance, get flood insurance. Mitigation measures. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Avril presented the hazard mitigation program, which is active now. But in general, it does things like property acquisition, especially in areas where we have seen so much scouring where people are now missing 20, 30, 40 feet of their property. These are potentially good candidates for this program. It's not for everyone. If you sustain minor damage, if you have a situation where you want to stay on your property, please come see the planning department first so that we can go through all of your options. Other things that the program does, elevating structures, demolishing structures, and doing new builds. There's an application process that was previously discussed as well. Other damages. Because this storm was not just a flood event, it was also a wind event, it was also a landslide event. I wanted to talk for a minute about some of the information related to landslides. In the planning department, we manage a couple of overlays in the county. One is called the steep slope overlay. The other one is called the protected ridge overlay. In this graphic, you will see some colors. One is a blue and the other is a teal. This is a real picture of an event that occurred. This blue imagery shows our steep slope overlay. Steep slopes often butt up against very flat areas, the small valley areas that we have. The teal represents a potential debris flow pathway. These are mapped on our GIS system. Unfortunately, you see that the structure was victim of a landslide, and that is what caused the entire part of this structure to be pushed off its foundation and left an incredible mess of logs, trees, muds, soils, rocks, and other debris. It's very important that you come to the planning department so we can discuss your options here. Many of these structures can be rebuilt, and the steep slope and protected ridge overlays are not a prohibition on development. They require extra measures, consultation with a geotechnical engineer, and they limit disturbed and impervious areas. This pretty much covers the things I just talked about here, but the reason that it's so important that we have these overlays is these soils, they're called colluvial soils. They mean they did not originally originate on the property in which they're located. They are unstable and they are very perilous. It's very important for you to consult with our planning department on options to make sure that the builds are done safely and that the rebuilds are done in accordance with our standards as well. With that being said, again, just our final slide, we are open for business and here to assist you any way that we can. We are located at 46 Valley Street. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Nathan. I will open it up for questions.
This is John Boyle from Asheville Watchdog. I actually have some questions for Nate.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, good morning, Nate.
Good morning.
That was really interesting what you're talking about. I'm curious, and as we have talked, there is some confusion about what people can and can't do. Are there some scenarios you'll have come across already where people absolutely cannot rebuild where they were? And what are those cases, if there are some?
Sure. I'll just give you a couple of basic examples. And I can't stress enough that there are dozens of different scenarios that we could paint, but a simple one might be Manufactured home located in a floodway, completely wiped off its foundation. Not only is that problematic to build back, some of the calls have been actually, I don't want to build back. This was one of those events that scared a lot of people. It was eye-opening for so many of us. Another scenario would be you've lost so much of your property that there's really no way to even build back. That's why we mentioned those might be good candidates for hazard mitigation grant program. So there's two examples there I would give you.
And say, for example, you had somebody in a situation like that that just doesn't have any other options. But they're in a floodplain where they sustained serious damage. Could they come to you guys and say, hey, we want to rebuild, and y'all find a way to make that work? Or what happens in that situation?
Sure. And you got to keep in mind, there's a lot of properties that are entirely 100% covered by, say, just the 100-year floodplain. And as long as it's built to standards, you can build back. I've got plenty of examples of folks that sustain damage on structures that are built to today's standards. They didn't sustain as much damage, but there's really nothing special we have to do for them other than issuing a permit to mitigate the damages that they received. One thing I would like to stress is it does not take much water at all to substantially damage a manufactured home. They are not built with the same materials as more permanent structures, stick-built structures, commercial structures, and therefore it can be 1 to 2 feet of water and completely warp the floor, and those would be substantially damaged right off the bat.
And it may be too early for this, but I know you mentioned, y'all had folks out doing surveys and checking. Have y'all got any numbers yet on number of structures that cannot be rebuilt?
No, we don't have that information yet. We've got quite a bit of work ahead of us. The problem is that there are numerous data sets at play here. So after the event, some of the first inspections were life safety inspections. They were looking for loss of life, hurt people, people trapped. The next set of inspections were windshield assessments. Those then moved into the survey 1, 2, 3 assessments with building inspectors. Now we're focusing on the inspections that have to take place within the special flood hazard area. So at this point, it's a bit premature to get into those type of questions, John, but we'll be happy to return back when we feel more comfortable about our data sets.
Okay, thank you, Nate.
Sure.
Do we have any other questions?
I've always got water questions. If someone from the city is
We
available.
have Brenna here, we have Ben, we have a couple of people.
Hey, John.
Good morning, Brenna. Hey, Ben. These are still coming from readers, and I realize we're getting to a level of specificity here, but I had someone ask on the flushing that y'all have recommended, and it's very important. They mentioned apartment buildings. This person lived in a Kenilworth area apartment, an older building, a lot of units. They're wondering about how flushing works in there, if it has to be like an overall flush that for the whole building, or if you flush your individual pipes in your unit, does that get rid of the potential lead?
So apartment buildings, people are pretty much using water all the time, but it probably would be good for those property managers to do a system-wide flush. A lot of those apartment buildings are mastered metered, so they would want to flush their lines themselves and then direct their tenants to flush their water as well. But we
Does the
still
city-
recommend, it just depends on how much water usage has occurred. There's different types of people. Some have used water continuously through this. Some people have not. We don't have a way of tracking that. But that is recommended. But if the tenant cannot get their property manager to flush, we do still suggest flushing their water for 10 to 15 minutes at first, but then follow that 30 seconds to 2 minutes each time they use the water for consumption if it hasn't been used for more than 4 hours.
And are y'all communicating that to apartment building owners, or is there any mandate from the city on that?
Not currently.
Okay. All right. And the only other question I've got right now is actually two people reached out to me about the water that they're getting. One person noted that it smells, it has an unusual smell, could be something to do with their building. I'm not sure, but a person lived in Florida and said it smelled like swamp water they would get there. And then someone else asked about they've heard reports of tea-colored water today even, and they're asking if there's other possible pollutants in North Fork that came from the storm that y'all have heard about or have suspicions about, and if you're addressing those. So kind of two-pronged, the water, possible discoloration and smell, and then North Fork, potential other contaminants.
Was the smell for an apartment complex or just in general?
I think it was an apartment complex.
Yeah, go ahead.
So John, real quick, I just want to clarify on that, a couple things. If you do have discolored water, first thing is you need to call our water customer service department so they're aware of that. But the other thing to remember is we still operate a significant and substantial water system. Just like we have in the past, we still have breaks that we have to repair. So as most folks in Asheville know, we do experience water main breaks. We do go repair those, but oftentimes under normal business, if there's a water main break, there may be, for a certain area, a boil water advisory. There may be some discoloration of water. So again, I just want to remind folks that we, at this point, are operating the water system as we always have. And I would encourage people, if you do see discolored water, please call the water customer service department so we can come and address that. It could be a break, it could be something else. But again, I just want to reiterate that the water that we are putting into our distribution system is coming through all or both of our water treatment plants, and it is of a quality that it typically is and meets all EPA and NCDEQ standards. And Brenda, I'm sorry if I cut you off. I just wanted to add that.
Ben, the second part of that was North Fork and any potential. This person was suggesting that because so many things washed into rivers and lakes around here, that there might be other contaminants at North Fork.
Okay, I'll answer that in a two-part way. One, we did testing per recommendations from NCDEQ, and once again, they are posted on our raw water results on the website. All detections came back as normal. But two, you have to remember, Norfolk is a protected watershed, so there's less likelihood of stuff like that happening during a rain event. Not saying we didn't have a lot of turbidity wash in, but there's less worry of something like that occurring in the Norfolk watershed.
Hey, Brenna, it's Laura at BPR. Just wondering, because I'm looking at that spreadsheet, don't see the turbidity for the last couple days. Can you just tell us what it is today, if you know?
It's still hanging around 14, 15 NTUs.
And then in terms of the testing, when people, I know there's like a couple thousand people now that have requested these lead tests. Is the instruction on that you run it for 30 seconds to 2 minutes so that you get what it would be if you're flushing, or do you run that test just straight out of the pipe to see if it's leaching lead?
Okay, with those test kits, there's 2 bottles with them. And so the instructions tell the customers to let the water sit undisturbed in the pipes for 6 to 8 hours or more. And they'll collect what's called a first draw sample. So that's no water usage at all in the home or the building for 6 to 8 hours at least. And they'll collect that first draw. Then they'll run the water for 30 seconds after that process and collect what we call a flush sample.
Great, thank you. And then I'm not sure who's who could answer this question, but we had some questions from listeners about the availability of blood tests if people are concerned that they've consumed too much lead.
No one from the health department's here, but in a previous briefing, they did say you can call the health department or talk to your healthcare provider for blood test.
Great. Thanks, Brenna.
Laura, I want to add to that, and that is correct. Dr. Mullendor was here last week and provided that advice, and the health department has posted information about how to contact them. But for users of the water system, remember our most vulnerable populations are women that are pregnant, nursing, or children under 6. And if you have consumed the water and you're on the North Fork system and you feel concerned, then yes, you should contact the health department. Or excuse me, yes, thank you. I don't want to overwhelm that. Yes, also your primary care physician would be an appropriate person to contact as well. So again, just want to make sure the public knows if you have concerns, your primary care physician and your public health department can be available to discuss that with you.
We had a question coming on socials about billing. I know yesterday we said that City of Asheville Water wouldn't start reading meters until December, but we have some people questioning whether that will be a baseline reading or if we're going to look at back usage and bill from there.
I don't have all the details on that yet, but that is, again, some information that we can share at a future press briefing. So again, I'm not able to answer that today, and I apologize for that, but we just want to make sure that when we provide the details of how we restore billing and what that looks like, that I can give accurate information. And again, I apologize for not having that today, but we will in the near future. Thank you.
Ben, before you go, I've got one more if other folks don't have questions. I had someone ask about, has the city looked at water towers or a system of towers? Do we have any water towers now, or what would be the impediments to that?
We have storage tanks that we use, I think, to help with pressure. 45 storage tanks. So I guess, John, I would maybe need a little more information about what we would use the towers for. I mean, what would be the premise of the tower for adding towers?
My take would be, like when you drive past cities and you see these giant towers that say, "Welcome to Asheville," and it's a big chunk of their water supply.
Right. Those cities are probably flat generally. I think what we're able to take advantage of with our storage tanks is just the naturally occurring elevation that we have here in Buncombe County. But we could certainly paint those storage tanks.
Being a good look.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any final questions? Well, I just want to share a reminder that if you have Helene related questions, you can call the One Buncombe Call Center Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that number is 828-250-6100, 828-250-6100. And that is also the line where you can ask questions about debris. We'll be back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we will not have a community briefing on Friday. Thank you.